If you're facing a dent in your plastic bumper, don't worry, there is a fix. Using a T-handle pick and puller and then a heat gun, you can see I've already drilled a hole in the dent there. And using my little pick and pull puller, I'm going to heat the plastic up and get it soft and pull. Now this thing is cracked, you probably can't see it in the video right here, but it'll come loose here in just a second. But it's cracked and broke, so I'm going to have to also weld the plastic back together as well. This could be done a whole lot easier with the bumper off, but some bumpers are just a pain in the butt to get off, so this is just the one method to do it without yanking the bumper off. Much the same with dented metal. When this thing got impacted, it stretched the plastic. So now I actually have more plastic than what will go back in the hole, so I will have to trim it to get it to fit in there a little bit. There's also a dent down below, an impact that's got it caved in. It almost looks like it's part of the way it's made, but it's not, so I'll have to repair that as well. Just using a box cutter, I'll just trim off that plastic a little bit until I can get it to where it fits in better. And I'll push it in, then I'll end up welding the plastic together. My next step will be taking a drill and put a hole in that dent right there at the bottom so that I can put my pick and pull tool in there to pull. Now I'm doing the same thing that I did at the top. I'm heating it up with a heat gun and using a little pull tool through the hole that I drilled and pulling it as I'm heating it up and softening it. And I've got it on the lower setting. I don't have it on super high and hot because I don't want to start blistering the paint. Once you start getting to blistering the paint on a plastic bumper, sometimes it's hard to get primers and paints to adhere to it. So I'm trying to heat up the plastic as best I can and pull it out and get the shape back. And then I'll start welding the plastic in all the cracked spots. Now using my plastic welding tool, I'll start melting the plastic on the bumper, and then I'll start adding some from this plastic stick that it comes with. And it's not hard to weld plastic. You just have to be a little bit patient with it. It's not going to like weld like a welder with metal and stuff. It doesn't go that quick. You have to kind of inch it along a little bit, but it does bond pretty good. If it was a really severe, super bad crack, there's an actual tool that actually melts a metal, kind of like a metal wafered band type in it. You can put it over the cracks and it'll bond it together. But this right here should work really well. That's really cool. The towel, like that plastic off of it. Now I'll run my sander over it to knock down the highs, plus it'll give a way to sand the surface so that the fillers and stuff will adhere to the bumper. Now I've laid in some plastic bumper filler. It looks a lot like fiberglass. You work it the same way. You put it on, and before it starts really getting real hard, you just use a cheese grater and kind of knock it off, or knock off the highs, and then go back in and fill in the lows, and then sand it. Here I'm using a DA sander with 80 grit sandpaper on it. I'm not really trying to tear down the whole bumper, so in this, even though this stuff looks like fiberglass, it sands pretty easy, so I'm just going at it a little bit gently. I don't want to put little heavy scratches in it. Then I'll go over it by hand with a piece of sandpaper so I can kind of mold and shape the bumper back into what it looks like factory. And as I sand, I'll keep going down or going up in a grit. In other words, I'm at 80 right now. I'll then probably hit it with some 100, 120, and eventually get to 180. And by then, all those little pits and stuff that's in that filler will go away. That filler didn't spread the best. I didn't really care for that brand. Once I got all the scratches and the filler sanded down smooth and everything, when I got to 180 grit, then I put a small skim of glazing putty on it, which also mixes kind of like body filler. There's several kinds of glazing putty, but I like the ones that are like epoxy based, that are activated. It sands real easy, so now I'll wet sand it with, start with 180, I'll probably end up finishing off with 220, then I'll sand the whole bumper with, probably skim over it with 320 and then go over the whole bumper on the final sand with 400 grit. Masked it off and now preparing it for primer. So just mask it off, and you notice that the tape line isn't straight on there, and I've got a ebook that I'm giving away. If you go to my website you can get it, that has all these tricks in it to where instead of just running a straight edge tape line and end up having a straight edge of having to sand down primer, it just gives you a feathered out lip and it makes it a lot easier to sand. Just want to wipe it down with some type of a degreaser, and then we're going to prime it. I'm using gray urethane primer to put over this. It's urethane primer builds over scratches far better and doesn't shrink like lacquers and other type of primers do. So I'll just put a coat of primer on it, sand it, and then it's ready to paint. Now I wet sanded the primed area with 400 grit sandpaper, and then after that I scuffied the whole bumper cover. I'll put that down in the description using the scuffy pad. It's much easier than trying to just sand the whole thing with sandpaper. Normally I spray with a spray gun, but I did want to show that you can, if you don't have the equipment like a spray gun and a compressor and stuff, you can use spray cans. And this is automotive touch-up brand paint. It matches really good. And this right now is just the first thin coat on it. I'm putting a coat not over the entire bumper. I'm just actually fixing paint chips that were in the front of the bumper as well. So just put your first coat on real light, let it dry for about 5-10 minutes, and then go, depending on your temperature. If it's colder weather, you'll want to wait about 15-20 minutes. But just put them in coats, and you can't try to cover that primer spot like in what I'm doing here. You can't cover it all at once. You'll have to put on a little bit of time. It'll probably take about 4 or 5 coats. Now I'm applying the clear, and this clear in this spray can is a 2K, which means it's a urethane clear. There's a button on the bottom of the can that you have to push in that puts the activator into the can before you spray it. And the reason why I'm using it is because it's as good as any kind of paint you would put in a gun, and it has a really good gloss to it. Now, the only thing I have against it is sometimes it doesn't go on as smooth as what a spray gun can put on. You can kind of see the orange peel in it, but it does spray pretty good, and the end result speaks for itself. And if you're all sitting there thinking, where's your mask? Yes, I should be wearing one. The wind was blowing, kind of keeping it away from me, but you should always wear a mask whenever you spray, either with a spray gun or a spray can. Sometimes I just get stupid, but you do want to spray, or do want to wear a mask when you're going to spray. Now this is what it looks like right after shooting the clear. I haven't sanded or buffed it. That's just the way it came out. After it kind of dried, it kind of flowed out. And this is what it looks like. I rubbed it out or sanded it out with a 2000 grit sandpaper and buffed it with a sponge, and it smoothed out those little bit of orange peel, and it looks great. It matches the rest of the car. Can't tell the difference in the color, and you can't see where that dent was ever in the bumper. As you can see, this looks like a professional job that you could have got done at any auto body shop. I did this out in my driveway. Everything I used could have been without any type of equipment. I mean, obviously I sprayed it with spray cans for the base coat and the clear coat. The primer, I did use my gun, but that's because I didn't have any urethane spray can primer, which you can get that too. You don't have to have a electric or air sander. You can sand by hand. So you don't really have to have a lot of equipment. So you can make a repair like this in your own driveway with minimal expense, other than just the paint materials and the filler. And I'll put all the stuff that I use down in the description, so be sure to look there. And I hope this helps you. And I also put a link down there in the description to where you can get a course that'll show you how to do body work and paint like a professional. So I hope this video helped you. And if it did, be sure to like and subscribe, and always check back because I'm always working on something crazy. See you in the next one.